Frozen Rebellion: How Snowmen Mocked Church and Crown. In the winter of 1511, Brussels froze solid. For 6 straight weeks, the city was buried in snow. Canals iced over, roads disappeared, and in the middle of it all, snowmen appeared. Hundreds of them. Some were political caricatures, others were explicit, very explicit. And nearly all of them were savage takedowns of church and state. This wasn't just a snowstorm, it was a protest, a frozen rebellion. This is the story of the miracle of 1511, when the people of Brussels fought back, with snow. Part 1. Deep Freeze and Deeper Discontent. January 1511. What we now call Belgium was under the distant rule of the Habsburg dynasty. The winter was brutal, snow piled up for weeks, rivers froze solid, food grew alarmingly scarce. The city became an isolated, icy prison. And the people? They were furious. Their anger wasn't just about the cold, it was fueled by years of deep-seated grievances. Wages were shockingly low. Taxes, levied by an indifferent nobility, were astronomically high. The Catholic Church was widely perceived as staggeringly corrupt, hoarding wealth while its parishioners froze and starved. The aristocracy, insulated in their warm palaces, seemed utterly out of touch with the brutal realities of the common folk. Beneath all that suffocating snow, things were ready to boil over. The city was a pressure cooker, the lid held down by ice and rigid authority. So, trapped by the unyielding weather, unable to publicly protest without brutal reprisal, the frustrated, desperate, and rebellious people of Brussels did what any fed-up 16th-century citizen, blessed with abundant building material, might do. They started building snowmen, thousands of them, and each one a dangerous, silent message that the authorities could not ignore. Part 2. Snowmen with a Message. These weren't your average, innocent, carrot-nosed winter pals. They were biting, often grotesque, and unequivocally crude works of satire, forged from frustration and audacious wit. They were an unbridled outpouring of collective resentment. The city became an impromptu, vast, open-air gallery of rebellion. One depicted a monk with exaggerated anatomy, face thrust into a barrel of wine, symbolizing the church's gluttony and hypocrisy. Another was a grotesque, corrupt merchant, gorging himself while tiny, skeletal peasants lay starving at his feet. There were numerous depictions of priests in flagrante delicto with nuns, exposing moral decay. Beggars were shown brazenly mocking royalty, thumbing their noses at the indifferent Habsburgs. The social order was literally turned on its head. Even more shocking, one snow woman was depicted giving birth in public, a raw commentary on common hardship. Others showed taboo behaviors, all meticulously crafted and strategically placed to shock and provoke. This was Renaissance protest art, sculpted from snow for the masses. It was ephemeral, democratic, and devastatingly effective. And the people? They flocked to see them, braving the bitter cold and the gnawing hunger. The streets became a bizarre, frozen art gallery, a temporary space of collective communion. Word spread like wildfire. People gathered, murmuring in shared recognition, chuckling in dark amusement, exchanging knowing glances. A powerful sense of collective defiance rippled through the populace. It quickly became known as the miracle of 1511. Not a miracle of faith, but a profound miracle of expression. For once, the silenced people could speak volumes without uttering a single dangerous word. Their message was loud, clear, and etched in frost for all to see. It was a brief, audacious, liberating moment of freedom. Part 3. Politics in the Snow. At the time, Brussels was a city simmering with acute social and political tensions. Wealth and power were concentrated, while commoners suffered. The nobility spent lavishly while peasants starved. The church hoarded riches and faced accusations of widespread corruption. And yet, this extraordinary frozen protest unfolded right in the open, without immediate or effective retaliation from the authorities. The very targets of the satire were forced to witness it daily. Why? Because the authorities literally couldn't move. They were physically and logistically paralyzed. The unprecedented cold froze everything: supply lines, communication, even the movement of city guards. Roads were impassable. For a few surreal weeks, the city's power structure found itself functionally impotent. They simply stood there, unable to suppress the burgeoning artistic rebellion. while the snowmen, with their mocking grins and outrageous poses, lampooned them from every street corner. The very symbols of authority were rendered immobile and impotent by nature itself. It was an accidental but perfect storm of circumstances that allowed this ephemeral freedom to flourish. Some historians see this as a kind of psychological release. Years of pent-up anger found a safe, temporary, and creative outlet. Others categorize it as carnivalesque inversion, a temporary period where traditional social hierarchies are playfully or subversively turned upside down. The powerful are ridiculed, the powerless briefly assert dominance. But make no mistake, this was not mere mischief. It was bold, it was audacious, and it was unequivocally noticed by everyone, leaving an indelible mark on the city's collective memory. Part 4. Documenting the Undocumented. In an age before widespread printing or mass media, how do we know about this incredible, fleeting phenomenon? How did this miracle of 1511 survive the thaw of time and memory? We know about the miracle of 1511 thanks to a few brave and perceptive chroniclers, mostly local artists, poets, and diarists. Despite the harsh conditions, they recognized the profound significance of what was unfolding. They meticulously recorded what they saw, felt, and heard, ensuring this unique moment in history would not be lost to the thaw. One anonymous writer described it as a festival of fools carved in frost, marveling at the audacity and wit. Another poet called it the season of silent revolt, capturing the essence of a protest that relied on visual messaging. Remarkably, a few rare drawings and woodcuts from the period still exist. These were painstakingly created by artists who braved the cold to capture the fleeting masterpieces. They show snow sculptures with astonishing detail, including full anatomical correctness, grotesque expressions, and satirical poses. Imagine the skill required to sculpt such figures from snow, knowing they would melt within days. Imagine walking through the snowbound streets of Brussels. Every street corner, every plaza, every public square has become an open-air exhibition. You turn a corner, and there's a towering bishop, his face a mask of greed. Further on, a king depicted naked. Then, a shocking, explicit scene involving clergy. It's a constant, immersive, visual roast, a frosty political cartoon brought to life in 3 dimensions. It was, in essence, a meme factory. 500 years before the internet. A viral phenomenon spread not through clicks, but through word of mouth and direct, impactful visual encounters. The snowmen were the shared cultural reference, the common language of defiance for a population silenced for too long. Part 5. Meltdown and Return to Order, 846 to 1045. But like all acts of nature, and indeed, like all revolutions made of such ephemeral material, all things must melt. Even the most audacious of ice-born rebellions. By early February, a subtle shift began in the unrelenting weather. The sun lingered longer. The biting wind softened. The temperature slowly crept above freezing, signaled by the drip, drip, drip of melting ice. The snowmen, once so proud and defiant, began their inevitable, sorrowful demise. First, the delicate details softened, blurring their biting expressions. Then, their elaborate limbs sagged, collapsing into misshapen blobs. The satirical poses warped. The carefully crafted messages dissolved into puddles of dirty slush. The satire itself, literally softened, then melted away. As the city gradually thawed and roads reappeared, so too did the protest dissipate. The very medium that had enabled the rebellion now marked its end. With the return of passable roads, the authorities, literally unfrozen, slowly returned to power. The city guard could once again patrol effectively. Church bells rang again, asserting their authority. The rigid social order, temporarily inverted and mocked, snapped back into place, seemingly unchanged. And the miracle of 1511, this extraordinary fleeting moment of collective defiance, largely vanished, almost as if it had never happened. Surprisingly, no arrests were made related to the snowmen, perhaps because the evidence had melted, or authorities preferred to forget the humiliation. No major riots erupted. Just a momentary, surreal blip in the long history of Brussels. A brief, shining period when satire, crafted from the very elements, ruled the streets. And then, silence. The silence of a city returning to its normal rhythms, its normal hierarchies. but perhaps also the silence of a people who had learned the subtle, profound power of collective, creative defiance, even if that power was as temporary as the winter snow. Part 6. Why It Matters, 1046 to 1230. So, after all these centuries, why should we care about a bunch of snowmen that melted away over 500 years ago? Absolutely not. The miracle of 1511 is far more significant than a mere curiosity. Its story resonates across the centuries, offering profound insights into human nature, power dynamics, and the endless quest for expression. Because it stands as one of the first known, large-scale instances of sustained, collective political satire by the people, for the people, operating entirely outside traditional power channels. This wasn't commissioned art. It was popular art, born directly from the masses' frustration and ingenuity. It vividly demonstrates how incredibly powerful expression can be, even in its most temporary, ephemeral form. The message didn't need to be etched in stone. Its very impermanence was its strength, allowing a fleeting freedom of speech unthinkable in any other lasting medium. The fact that it would melt was its ultimate protection. And it showcases the enduring, often underestimated, power of humor to challenge those in power. Laughter, especially shared public laughter at the expense of authority, can be a potent weapon. It disarms, it humanizes the powerful by making them ridiculous, and it unifies the powerless. The Snowmen didn't overthrow the Habsburgs, but they certainly made them look foolish and out of touch. They empowered a populace that had long felt powerless. These aren't just innocent snowmen. They were powerful, chillingly effective messages. They were sculpted critiques, symbols of defiance, and a testament to human ingenuity under duress. They represent a primal human need to speak truth to power. Part 7. The Legacy. The miracle of 1511 didn't ignite a full-blown revolution, but it did leave an undeniable, enduring mark on history and on the collective consciousness of Brussels. Its tale was passed down, a whispered legend. It's remembered by historians as a truly rare and fascinating moment when ordinary people, armed with nothing but their ingenuity and an exceptionally harsh winter, took center stage and used satire and collective artistic expression to level the playing field, if only for a few short weeks. Today, in our hyper-connected digital world, we have memes, we have viral tweets, we have cutting political cartoons that spread globally in seconds. We have endless avenues for instant, anonymous, and often biting satirical commentary. Back then, they had snowballs and a boundless, audacious imagination, and they used both brilliantly, forging a unique, unforgettable protest that still resonates half a millennium later. It reminds us that the spirit of rebellion can find a voice in the most unexpected forms. So, next time you build a snowman, just remember its radical, rebellious ancestors. Because in 1511, snow wasn't just fun, it was rebellion. A frozen, ephemeral, yet utterly unforgettable act of defiance. And speaking of public panic and unexplained phenomena, next time on History 101, we're heading to the dark, tense days of 1942. The place? Los Angeles. Just weeks after the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, air raid sirens wailed. Searchlights swept the inky sky. Anti-aircraft guns opened fire on something. Thousands of witnesses. Hundreds of shells. But no enemy planes were ever found. What exactly did LA shoot at that night? A cunning Japanese raid? Mass hysteria? Or something stranger? Join us for the Battle of Los Angeles, the Phantom Air Raid of 1942, a wartime mystery that still bewilders historians and fuels endless theories.